How do you mix the feed that you give to your chickens at your farm? Very many people are asking me this question. They want to know how I mix these feeds that I give to my birds here at Kevara Farm. So in today's video, I'm going to give you the ratios that I use to mix these feeds that I give to my birds. And I'm also going to tell you why you shouldn't mix everything for yourself. But before we continue, I'm called Lillian. I'm from Kevara Farm. A few years ago, I decided to quit my career and major in poultry farming. So in this channel, we share my experiences as a beginner poultry farmer. I also tell you everything, all the knowledge that I've acquired along this journey, I share with you. So please consider subscribing if you're so much interested in poultry farming. Like this video. Always comment in the comment section. Ask me about everything that you would want me to tell you. I'll be glad to tell you everything. And please don't forget to tell me where you're watching me from. So talking about mixing this feed, we have to consider a certain things. The ingredients needed. Do they contain the appropriate amount of nutrients that are required for these birds in order for them to lay properly? So chickens, they require certain nutrients. They need carbohydrates, they need proteins, they need fats, they need proteins, they also need calcium. We have different sources for different nutrients. For carbohydrates, you can give your birds maize, or you can substitute maize with wheat. And then for fats, by giving your birds sunflower, they can be able to get the fats from there. And then for calcium, you can either give your birds lime, or you can consider using shells. And then for proteins, we have different sources of proteins. One, you can give your birds fish meal. And then we have soya bean. Some people give their birds these black soldier fly larvae. So here let's talk about more about soya bean and then fish meal. For fish meal, I wouldn't advise I wouldn't advise my farmers to use this meal, because when it comes to proteins, it is so tricky. You have to be so careful with this, because there is a certain percentage of protein that is required in the chicken's feed. It is always 75.5, or it is 18%. So you have to make sure that your feed has this percentage in order for your birds to lay well. If you mess up with this, you're going to face problems, because if you're not consistent, or you mess up with this percentage, if it is too high or if it is too low, your birds are going to get problems. Your birds might reduce on the production rate, and it will be so hard for you to raise this percentage to normal. So for fish meal, the reason why I'm not recommending it, it's because when these fishermen get this fish, they spread it somewhere in order for it to dry. So by mixing it somewhere, it is contaminated. It is mixed with sand. Then maybe the birds land on it and poo in it. So it is contaminated. So it will be so hard for the farmer to determine this 18% or 17.5% of protein. It might be so hard for the farmer to get this percentage. So even when it comes to soybean, you never give your birds raw soybean. It's because this raw soybean contains some amino acids which are so toxic to your birds. So you may end up killing your birds. And then for soybean to prepare it well, you have to cook it or roast it. Then you don't need to overcook it, and you also don't need to let it stay raw. When you overcook it or when you burn it, you will have killed the minerals. You will not get what you want. And if you have cooked it and it stays raw, it may be so toxic to the birds and you end up killing some of them. So you have to make sure that you boil it properly or you roast it well. By roasting, you roast it to the point whereby even human being can be able to take it. So in order to avoid all these challenges in finding it hard to ascertaining this percentage of protein, I would advise someone to use concentrate. Like me at my farm, I use concentrate. I also use maize. I use brand. I also use calcium. Here, I'm 100% sure that the percentage of protein is not tampered with. Many people prefer mixing their feed because people say that when you mix your feed, you will reduce on the cost of feed. But I'm telling you, you may end up losing, you may end up making losses. For example, if you do not mix properly, if you do not ascertain the percentage of proteins properly, you may not get the highest percentage of production for your birds. And there you're leaving out some trays, and that is you're leaving out some money. So even by mixing with a concentrate, because a concentrate, a 50-kilogram bag mixes 250 kilograms. As here, 250 kilograms, it includes the 50 kilograms of concentrate. So you can also play around with the other 200 kilograms to reduce on the cost. For me, this is how I do it. When there is a lot of maize on the market and the prices are low, I stock a lot of maize. I buy very many tons of maize, then I stock. And then when the price for maize goes up, I use the maize which I've stocked. And by doing that, I'll be producing at a low cost. Then there I make profits. But the problem with this, you have to be knowing how to store this maize. First of all, you have to buy the maize which is dry. You have to make sure that the maize which you've bought is dry. Then another thing, you have to know how to store this maize. Let me give you an example, a scenario which happened at our farm. When we brought in this 1,500, people told us that in order to cut on the cost, you have to stock maize. So for us, we went and stocked maize. We didn't care about if it is dry or not. Then at the farm, I have a room, and that room doesn't even have the door. So that room, we just brought the maize, the sacks of maize. We didn't even care on the floor. We just placed the maize on the floor, and we didn't cover the entrance. So rain would drop, would fall on the maize, and the maize was placed on the floor, meaning the coldness from the floor would enter. And we didn't put any measures to reduce the weevils and all those insects that enter the maize and destroy it. So when time for feeding the chickens came, when we gave that maize to chicken, the percentage of production dropped. It actually dropped from 94% to 60%. So I started running around wondering why are my birds cutting in production. But we discovered it was because of the maize. It had gone bad. It was spoiled. So then there I had to leave the maize and buy the expensive maize. So I made a loss because I didn't know how to store this maize. You have to learn how to store this maize. First of all, you have to buy the dry maize. Then you don't have to put it on the floor. You have to put some pallets or wood to stop the coldness from going from the floor to enter the maize. Then you have to make sure you control these bean weevils and all those insects and rats. You have to make sure those, even the rats, do not enter those sacks. By doing that, you will produce at a low cost and you will be able to make profits from this. So here, let's go to the ratios that I use. You might get your notebook. I also have my notebook here. So this is how I mix my feed. Concentrate, I use a 50 kilogram bag of concentrate. Then I mix with broken. This is maize. We put 89 kilograms. And then for brand we put 81 kilograms. And then lime for calcium. Calcium, I use shells. Shells are a bit expensive compared to lime. In the beginning, I was using lime, but I discovered it wasn't working well for me because the eggshell stayed so soft. So I resorted to using shells, and shells are working very well for me. So for shells, we put 35 kilograms. I go to the store, I purchase all those differently. I bring to my farm and then I mix from my farm. Information, I hope I've been able to help someone who is asking and wondering how they can mix their feed at the farm. So thank you for watching me. Please consider subscribing. If you've liked the content that I've given you, please press the like button such that YouTube can know that you like what I'm giving you. Thank you for watching me. Bye bye. See you in the next video.